Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Oystein. It was either this or Concatenation. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. So what we are getting though is Promise of the Polis by the band Serpent. Let's dive into this. This is looking very black metal-y. We got a lot of black metal this week. Let's dive into this and see what's going on. Alright. Interesting decision. There's an interesting ducking that's going on, and I'm not sure where the sidechain lies. But it's creating this pulsing sound out of the residual element of the guitars, like the reverb or something like that. There it is. I think it comes in off the toms. And it brings the volume down on the guitars a little bit. Interesting decision. Yeah, this is just very intense. You know what's wild too is that I thought the production wasn't indiscernible to start with, but at this point it's just wall of sounds. No, it's the bass kick, isn't it? And it does bring the volume down on the guitars a little bit. Interesting to hear the clipping on that guitar too. Some white noise at the top of it. Okay, that's not for me. That's not my cup of tea at all. But you know what? I'll say this. It was interesting. This band was not happy with just sitting on a single idea for very long. It felt like, aside from the end, which we did get that little bit of a groovy riff going on, so we run with that for like 30 seconds or so. I think that was honestly one of the longest ideas in the song. Everything else was about moving on, getting to the next thing. Long linear passages, or maybe not linear, but very long phrases that feel linear. The repetition comes after such a long part of time that I don't even notice we've repeated the idea. Although, honestly, there's a good 3 minutes in the middle of this track that I couldn't really make out anything, so it could have been fully repeated for all I know. Oh, man. First idea here is just the production of it all. It is this weird midpoint between being able to hear everything and then the singular wall of sounds. The beginning was rather clear. I could make out all of the guitar lines. The ending was clear. I could make out the guitar lines. I could make out all the drums. The vocals are pushed down into the mix, but not too far, right? I can still hear where words begin and end, or at least syllables. I might not be able to point out what syllables they are, and I certainly don't hear any words, but the idea is that I can still hear different inflections within it. So again, it's sitting in that middle ground. It's not super clear, but it's not completely disguised and pushed into the mix either. Um, and so I had this point at the beginning. It's like, okay, this is a higher fidelity black metal. It still has that grit. It still has that compression to it. It's still a gnarly sound, but I can make things out. And then, the middle, like minutes 2 to like 4.5, 2 to 5, something like that. All that was just noise, chaos, a cacophony of sound being thrown at me. I stopped hearing pitches. I stopped hearing ideas. It was just a wall. Bonkers stuff. And so, like, again, I kind of expected a song I'd be able to get, if nothing else. And I got tricked by that. We introduced with something I could hear and then just went into this gnarly stuff. And so the production's sort of like 50-50, right? But then we also have the audio ducking, and this is a term where you connect one instrument to another and change the volume based on what the other is doing. Ducking usually means you bring the volume down to duck under the other instrument, and this is linked together by a concept called side chaining. And what I think I came to the conclusion of here is that it's either the bass kicks or the floor tom will cause the guitars to duck in volume by just a hair. Not something super noticeable where it basically becomes non-existent, but we are talking maybe a decibel, half of a decibel. It was just enough for basically any time that we have a lot of lower drum work. Again, I'm not sure if it's the floor tom or the bass kick, but whenever it comes in excessively, I kind of hear this pulsating of the guitars. And it's like a little higher, a little quieter, a little higher, a little quieter, a little higher, a little quieter. And it's very distracting. It was the first thing I picked up on. It was in that first section. And it continues on throughout the song. And I had a hard time not recognizing it. And I'm curious if more production-oriented people could tell me exactly what they hear. Because I'm still kind of guessing based off of that. But it does feel like I said, one of those two parts of the drum kit come in, and the guitars, I'm pretty sure it's what's being pulled down. Either way, I felt this waviness. There's not a flatness to the instruments. There's a wave to it, and it's odd. I don't know any other way to put it. It's very disorienting to listen to. And maybe it is rather common in the world of metal, not even just black metal, but maybe this was just done a little bit more excessively than most bands do it. For whatever reason, it was just noticeable for me. So, like, yeah, that was the first thing I noticed was production, and I wanted to touch on that first. Aside from that, though, I don't hear any bass in here at all. Maybe it's just a low rumble. It gets lost in the wall of sound. But what I do hear is a lot of guitar, and a lot of the guitar work is very texture based, and when it is harmonically focused, such as the dyads at the beginning of the song, they're primarily looking at dissonant harmony. Playing two notes, or three notes, four notes, however many they're playing, that just clash and create this gritty waviness to the sound. It's all over the place, and mixed with the production, which is very just in your face, wall of sound kind of stuff, I have a tough time listening to this. It is just, like I mentioned, I took the headphones off at the end and I was like, that's not my cup of tea. And the harmonic resonance definitely leans into that. There's very, very little music that I can enjoy that is as sonically abrasive as this. And this just, it's too much abrasion that we get from the production, that we get from the harmony, that we get from just the cacophony of everything happening so frequently. I mean, and frequency is actually a good one too. When you listen to the drums, 16th notes, all over the place, so many different sounds. It's not even just the rigidity of normal black metal, like third wave, 16th note bass kicks, and blast beats. At least there's a rigidity to that where eventually it just kind of becomes white noise. It's just those two timbres, right? This is all over the place. The whole kit's being used. It's probably really impressive to watch this person play the drums like this, but it also makes it really difficult for it to blend into the background like I think it typically does for a lot of black metal listeners. This puts the drums front and center. They're basically another melodic instrument alongside the guitars. They are very rarely sticking with a single idea. They're not really focused too much on, hey, we have this oppressive sound. We have 16th notes. Let's just stick with what we're doing. The rhythmic element never changes. There's always this consistent flow of either 8th or 16th notes, and that's really it. We don't have syncopation. We don't have changing ideas. We are either all 8ths or all 16ths. But there's just so many different sounds coming out of this as the drummer is all over the kit. And it ends up feeling a bit more melodic, which it works. It's cool. As far as creating something that feels oppressive, That's how you do it. Because, like I said, if you just stick with blast beats and 16th note bass kicks, the rigidity of that, not just the rhythmic rigidity, but the sonic idea as well, utilizing this smaller palette of just these two sounds and maybe occasional cymbal work. Maybe you have cymbals on quarter notes or something like that. But the repetition sonically can eventually become background noise to the song. You can ignore it and you can fall into the atmosphere of the guitars or anything like that. Maybe you're listening to the vocals, but it allows the drums to become this almost atmospheric element, a white noise that sits around the song itself. You can't do that with the drums here. They refuse to be forgotten, to be looked past. And when you bring that up and play it alongside the guitars, just constantly two guitars feeling like they're playing two totally different things, no key is present. It feels like all 12 tones are available for them to play. They're playing chromatically, but they're also both playing two very different ideas, but they also have this rigidity, eighth notes or 16th notes, having this rhythmic concept where they share it. They're just harmonically all over the place. And then when you pair in slides and bends and whatever else they're doing to create textures to the notes, it's just this flurry. You know what it is? A good word, good phrase. Sonic onslaught. That's what this feels like. There's just no escape from it. There's no contrast to it. There's no part where the song simmers down a little bit and we get to chill. There's no point to breathe. It is just full sound all the time, directed right into your ear holes. And yeah, I don't know, man. The last thing I want to bring up is the vocals. And like I said, I'm kind of torn here too, because I can kind of understand them. I can feel different inflections, different types of harshes, little texture changes that the vocalist is putting on it. I can sometimes hear the beginnings and ends of syllables too, but I can't make out anything. And so it's sort of obscured. It's sort of, pushed into the mix and done more for texture than actual words. But there's also a part of me that was like, maybe if I listened to this two more times, I'd be able to understand what he's saying. It's like right on the cusp of having some sort of clarity. And to me, that's kind of frustrating. I've talked about many times in the past, I like my vocals to be understandable. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to be clean. I just like to be able to understand them. And I'm kind of okay if I have to have lyrics to understand it. What I find not great at all, and actually we just checked it out with Imperial Triumphant a little bit, is when I have the words up and I'm listening to your song and they still don't seem to line up because it doesn't sound like you're saying anything like what the lyrics are. It's just a huge hurdle for me. I'm never going to get over that. I don't think that is a mile high hurdle, and I only have legs. I don't have a jetpack or anything like that. I'm not getting over that. That is a big wall to me, basically. And I kind of get the feeling that that's going to happen here. I'm right on the cusp of it being clear, but I'm so scared that if I played against the lyrics, it's not going to line up at all. Which, honestly, I mean, most of the song doesn't work for me anyway, so it really doesn't matter if the vocals also end up not working for me. But I don't know, there's a lot of promise here as far as vocal production and delivery goes. Like I said, there's a few different types of harshes in here, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the progressive elements in the music, how it is kind of linear, how there are these avant-garde elements to it. This is not the rigid repetition that I have come to kind of hate in the traditional third wave black metal. That is what I've been exposed to a majority of my times listening to the genre. This is the opposite of that, and through that, I can see why somebody might have picked this for me. I complain about repetition in black metal, so they give me something like this, and yeah, it's a good pick, I think, and it does show a different side of the total onslaught element of black metal, because a lot of the black metal that I've come to enjoy, or at least liked a little bit in my reactions, has been the stuff that is kind of not black metal-y, the ones that take moments to go acoustic, even that have clean vocals in them, the stuff that isn't true cult black metal. And I kind of feel like this still is in that true black metal sound, but compositionally it's exploring different ideas. I just kind of wish it wasn't so aggressive with it, but again, that would kind of remove what it's doing. So I do appreciate this pick. I think there's some really cool things in here as far as making sure that the song never really gets boring or tedious. Serpent Column does a fantastic job at keeping things interesting, but the overwhelming nature of it really makes it difficult for me to concentrate on it, and to engage in it in a way that I can engage with, I don't know, like theatrical indie rock. Stuff that I can really get into. You give me a 5-minute song and I make like a 50-minute video about it. I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to come around to traditional black metal like that, but I do want to just, point this out. I appreciate the more eclectic, progressive, experimental concepts that are present here. Even if I can't really hear all of it, so I don't really have the vocabulary to talk about it, and it really wasn't my cup of tea. I do appreciate the selection and exposing me to a different kind of oppressive black metal. Let's check out some lyrics on this and see what Serpent Column is screaming about in Promise of the Polis. So this song seems to be painting a picture about the failed promises of the modern age, where modern doesn't necessarily need to be right now, but simply that they were promised something, a better life, and they don't quite see it. It says that they're trudging through the moldering corridors of history, beguiled by the promises of the polis, ringing hollow across decades and broken on the rack. There's supposed to be a freedom from brevity and vicissitude, a liberty utterly emptied of liberty. Basically, they were supposed to have a ton of freedom. They were supposed to have time on their hands to explore what they wanted to, and instead they're finding that they're not. Life is not something that they feel is theirs, but something owned by another, with fleeting moments to themselves. Later says that humanity has been drained of its wild majesty, a stalker of beasts now broken, longing absently for a capsule of cyanide. So we're basically just husks waiting for death. And from here we move into a typical black metal type of nihilism that basically continues on this idea that there's nothing worthwhile, that modernity is just garbage, things might have been better earlier, or whatever. But yeah, modern life is just terrible, and we should all just wait for our ultimate fate at the glorious hour of our death. Yeah. uh I can kind of get behind most of this, but the ending takes it into that very dark area that black metal likes to go into. So, does this fit the song? Yeah, I suppose. It's oppressive, it's dark. The lyrics talk about wanting to explore something else, a promise that isn't quite delivered on. There's definitely parts of the song that I would have liked to move on to something else. No, that's a bit cold. But anyways, yeah, I mean, it's an oppressive, dark song with a ton of weight to it, and lyrically they're pushing in that same direction as well as far as theme goes. So I'd say that they work together artistically on a thematic level. But those are just my thoughts. on Promise of the Polis. What did you think of this track? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe just have your own thoughts, opinions, or perspective on this track. Toss all that stuff down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but we will be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We'll be continuing on with this week's theme of jazzy drumming, but, not in jazz. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.